Hi, CREC, or Alvarado here, Director of Communications and Community Relations. I'm here just to kick off our Women's HERstory Month, Courageous Advocacy. All month long, you will hear from some courageous women who've taken the word courageous and advocacy and put it together for so many reasons, for so much goodness. We hope you enjoy this month. Today, I have the honor and the privilege of introducing our first speaker, our very own Sandy Cruz Serrano, Deputy Executive Director at CREC. The interview is lots of information and just a wealth of a little peek into why Sandy is where she is today. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Aura.
Thank you so much for making the time to be our first speaker for our Women's HERstory Month at CREC, which is our theme is Courageous Advocacy.
Yes.
So I wanted to start a little with some statistics. So you probably already know this. In our last payroll, we had a total of 1,765 women that are active in our system.
Yes.
I always find that amazing. Out of 2,000 and so employees, right? How do you feel about that?
It's great, but traditionally schooling has been left to women, and so it's not surprising that the majority of our employees are women.
Okay. So we celebrate Women's Month, and I know that the national theme is providing healing and promoting hope. But here at CREC, we decided to highlight the courageous advocacy on Women's HERstory Month that we're doing. What does courageous advocacy mean to you?
Well, it means that you are going outside yourself, pushing yourself to a place that is usually uncomfortable at first, and probably even longer terms. But you push yourself because what you're advocating for, what you're fighting for, is that important to you. So much so that you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Okay. What examples of courageous advocacy can you share with us that relate to CREC?
Courageous advocacy at CREC is huge. It's who we are. We're a social justice agency, and advocacy is what we do. We do it every day, all day long, because we fight for making sure that kids have high quality education. We fight for making sure that we open up the doors to employees of color, LGBTQ plus community. We're constantly in the forefront of advocacy. And we, it's sometimes uncomfortable. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to our surrounding towns, sometimes even to our own employees. But we feel strongly that really that's who we are as an agency, is that we're here to fight for those who often cannot fight for themselves.
Okay, all right. So what would be one example of courageous advocacy that you're proud of? And it could be here at CREC or maybe something else, but...
I think for me, one of those moments is anytime, and it's the reason I came to CREC, which is the work that we do around Chef O'Neill. As a student who came into the city of Hartford, not speaking English, being a woman of color, a girl of color, with a family that was poor, single mom, understanding the need that children have for folks to advocate for them, for folks to make sure that children have what they need. That is why I'm here. It's why I come here every day, because I was that kid. And so knowing that the work that we do around Chef O'Neill changes lives. It literally changes lives. It takes a child out of their current environment and works with that child to empower them to become, great citizens, hopefully. At least that's our goal. And I think we've accomplished that and many, many, many times over as we look at past students who have graduated and become, great citizens around not just Connecticut, but the globe at large. And that I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of the work that we do with our schools.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons we're both been here a long time. I think it just it grounds us and makes us feel really happy about what we do.
Absolutely.
What is one thing you wish more people knew about women in the workplace?
Well, lots of things. That we're strong, we're knowledgeable, we're here to stay, we're not going anywhere. We should be counted on for decision making, for implementation, for evaluation. I think the one thing that I wish people would remember about women in the workplace is that we can get it done.
Get it done, right?
That's it.
Okay, so it's very simple, right?
It is.
If you know what the goal is and just getting it done. Okay, so with that in mind, what courageous woman advocate inspires you and why?
I have a hard time with that question because I think historically women have not been great about lifting up other women. And, I thought about that question and immediately, on a bigger scale, I thought of somebody like Sonia Sotomayor, Justice Sotomayor, whose story is very compelling and reminds me in many ways about my own story. So, thinking big picture, she's somebody that I would say, I admire or who inspires me. But thinking more locally, I can think of one woman who was my superintendent in my previous employer, and she was my first female boss ever. I had never had a female boss until she came along. And one of the first things she did was she looked at the salaries of the cabinet level people and realized that although I was the second in command, I had the lowest salary of all the other folks, most of whom were men. And she said, this is something that needs to be corrected immediately.
Wow.
And she said, next time, don't ever let yourself be devalued in that way. And she's inspired me ever since. Her name is Dr. Jacqueline Jacoby.
Yes. Wow. That is amazing when you put it in perspective like that it took another woman to realize, right, that you were not at that moment getting, the value of all the other counterparts in
Correct.
your area. So, wow, that is, it does take other women to uplift, not just women, but everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what do you think is the most significant barrier to courageous advocacy for women in the workplace?
I would say it's lack of support. There's lots of barriers, right? It could be lack of knowledge. It could be just not knowing where to start. But oftentimes, I think for us women, we need to be supported, right? We need to know that someone is behind us or on our side. And sometimes we don't open up, we don't speak up because we're concerned that we're not going to be supported in the circle that we're in. And I think that's a really big barrier for lots of women. So, to me, I think supporting your sister is key.
Yeah. So if someone was struggling with trying to find that support, how would you tell them to go about to find it or seek it or at least be courageous enough to advocate for some support?
So it's funny, I'll just speak from my own experience. What I've found is when you don't have the support, you become the support. So, that's what I've done. It's just, I didn't, as I said, I only could think of one person, Dr. Jacoby, and so I become that support for other women and other people in general, is just being there for someone else. I think that takes courage because again, you have to use your voice. Ruth Bader Ginsburg there's a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg that I really love, and I think she says something like, speak up even if your voice shakes, right? And so that's the courage that has to come from within to support yourself and be able to support others who are trying to do what's best.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate that, Sandy. I know many of us here at CREC look up to you, and you have supported many sisters. I know that firsthand. And before we close, is there anything inspiring or a message you want to leave, not just for the women at CREC, but for all of us CRECies who are really trying to be that courageous advocacy person, so things get done?
Yeah. Put yourself out there. Like, that's why that Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote really resonates with me, because generally speaking, I tend to be an introvert. I tend to be a shy person. I don't like the limelight. I don't like, this well. I don't like to be in the front. So it takes extra effort in my part to speak up, and sometimes my voice does shake. Sometimes my tummy becomes in knots, but just making myself do that opens the doors, not just for me, but for other women and other people to get the courage as well to say that. Because you know how it is, when somebody asks a question, then first nobody asks a question, but then somebody raises their hand timidly and asks a question, and all of a sudden everybody else has the freedom to ask a question, or feels the freedom to ask the question, or make the comment. And so that is critical, is to just somehow find a little bit of strength within yourself, even if you're shaking, even if your hands are shaking, and say what's on your mind, or ask that critical question that you think needs to be answered. Because oftentimes there's 3/4 of the people around the room with either the same question or the same comments wanting to be coming out of their mouths, but are afraid to do that because they may not feel supported.
All right. Well, that is a great piece of advice that I'm definitely going to take to heart and continue doing. So I want to thank you, CRECies, for listening in and seeing Sandy's story. And I want to thank you again for making time for us.
My pleasure. Thank you.